There is an expression, children do not choose their parents. I cannot speak for all children, but my daughter definitely chose me. It would be more accurate to say that the soul of the future child chose her parents in advance. And no amount of effort can override that choice. And it is true. I will tell you about this poignant story. It was 1991. I was 28 years old. The country was undergoing radical changes in its social and governmental structure. Millions of people had lost their jobs, their benefits, their savings, their livelihoods. Almost all goods and products had disappeared from store shelves, and prices were rising every day. The country was plunging into chaos. And in these difficult conditions, I suddenly found myself in a position. I had been legally married for many years. My husband and I had a good relationship. We were raising a 7-year-old boy together, so we were a happy family. Recently we moved to a new place of residence and moved into our own house. I managed to find a good job. And then the unexpected news, like a snowball. Not that my husband and I didn't want a second child, but at that moment it was all kind of sudden. I thought about it, weighed everything up, and made the decision, one son. To make my plans come true, I went to a local clinic. It was a gloomy, rainy day. I took a long walk. I must say it was not a long walk. About halfway there I suddenly became terribly tired. I was very sleepy. My eyes were closed with heavy eyelids, my legs felt puffy, and I just wanted to sit down on the ground and fall asleep. And a bell rang in my head, "Come back." I don't remember how I got home. I remember that I went into my bedroom, collapsed on my bed, and slept for 14 hours. The next day I went to the clinic again, but the doctor told me that the situation was already critical and I wouldn't have time to take an AIDS test. The thing is that in 1991 it took 2 weeks to prepare these tests. In short, the doctor refused me. If you had come in yesterday, we would have had time to take the tests and send them together with the car to the laboratory. I should have thought back then that some force was giving a very clear sign. But I ignore that warning and don't give up on my decision. My mother-in-law had already tried to organize the next attempt. She sent me to her friend, an experienced doctor. But she looked at me and categorically refused to participate in my risky venture. It's too late to do anything. But I, as if under an obsession, followed a clearly disastrous path, and a third attempt followed. This time my good friend referred me to her sister, who worked as a doctor in a regional hospital on the other side of town. Everything was arranged in advance, what time I was to arrive, who and how to ask. In other words, everything was planned in detail for me. The female doctor was supposed to be on duty the night before. All along the way I set myself up as best I could. This time I got there without incident. The road from the station to the district hospital was wide and straight. But the mood was as lousy as the weather. It was drizzling with a light rain, and it was damp. Fallen leaves rustled beneath my feet and made me feel sad. Ahead of me on the road, a chubby boy carefully wheeled a stroller with a little girl who laughed most of the time. The boy looked about 8 or 9 years old, the girl about 2. I felt with every fiber of my being that these children were having a good time in each other's presence. It seemed obvious that such a picture should make me happy. I, on the other hand, for some reason really didn't want to look at them. I felt uncomfortable in their presence. But no matter how hard I tried to outrun them, I failed. My happy brother and sister walked ahead of me all the way to the hospital. I stepped into the completely empty lobby. The on-duty lights were on. I saw part of a checkpoint with bare hangers. There wasn't a soul around. I coughed, but the room responded with a viscous silence. I stood there, not knowing what to do. At that moment, a disheveled woman's head peeked out from behind the front desk like the devil out of a snuff box. I even flinched in surprise. And, frankly, I was scared. When I asked how to get to the doctor, the manager answered, "She's not working today. And her appointment is long over. Go home, woman. There's nothing for you to do here." I burst out, "No way. We had a deal with her. What do you mean it's not working?" And she defiantly says to me, "That's it." Something confused and frightened me in this woman. What it was, I realized already on a slushy street, where I ran out dumbfounded by everything that was happening. The woman stood behind the counter unnaturally, as if at an angle, leaning heavily to the left side, like a broken mannequin. All attempts to contact the person who was waiting for me that night at the hospital were unsuccessful. All the payphones I came across were broken. There were no cell phones at the time. After 2 hours I was able to call the doctor. It turned out that the doctor was there waiting for me. Our arrangement was still in place, and she told me to go see her quickly. She also said that they did not and never had a receptionist who matched my description. I sat in my mother's kitchen. I tried to warm myself with hot tea. My soul was in turmoil, questions were ringing in my head. What to do? Who should I turn to? But there were no clear answers, and my thoughts gradually tuned out. I remember sitting there, staring stupidly into the blackness of the evening outside the window, and I began to realize that, after all that had happened, probably only a stubborn or complete idiot would not understand that nothing needed to be done. Already 3 times someone had persistently distracted me from this insane step. Some forces stopped me, sent me clear signs, frightened me. And then the thought clearly formed in my head, don't try. No matter what, this baby is meant to be born. And so, around the 7th month of pregnancy, I had an unusual dream, which I still remember in minute detail. In the dream there was an amazing little girl. More like a teenage girl of about 14 or 15. She was tall, slim, thin, and had long, shoulder-length, copper hair. She was wearing a very short, intricately patterned green dress. She just stood there in silence and looked at me with a kind of challenge. Here, Mommy, look who you wanted to give up. On March 29, 1992, our daughter was born a month premature. Apparently, in a hurry, the mother was unreliable. I didn't have an ultrasound, but I knew for sure it was a girl. And 15 years later she was exactly as I had seen her in that dream. Tall, with long, dark red hair. She's the same now, at 28, and her personality is as complicated as that drawing on her dress. And my eldest son used to push his little sister in the stroller, too, and she laughed merrily at him. And who says kids don't choose their parents? In fact, as I learned later, children's souls choose their parents long before they are born.